Could not find a video on 59F, so now I'm going to have to make this little video myself with some explanations for the questions on the English section of 59F. I think I'll be able to find them for the math section, but the first one I have to work on is number 15. And I've also made this little chart here that has the letters so that as I work these, I can cross out the ones I say are wrong, check mark the ones I claim are right, and put a question mark to those that confuse me or upset me, or one or the other. So 15 is the first one. It says, suppose the writer had intended to write a brief essay persuading readers that the subway system is New York City's most economical means of public transportation. Would this essay fulfill the writer's goal? Well, writer's goal is based on main idea of the essay. If it fits the main idea, then it does fulfill the goal. If it doesn't, then it doesn't fulfill the goal. So if they don't match, the main idea of the passage and the writer's goal don't match, then the passage doesn't fulfill the goal. And watch out for scope. If the scope is specific and the passage is general about a lot of things, and the goal is only one thing in particular, then the scope doesn't match. And so that would be a no. So we're looking to see if the subway system is New York City's most economical means. You have to get main idea as you read the passage. So read it actively, just like the reading section, and make sure you pay attention to what is the main idea. But let's check it out. The first paragraph. Now, I'm not a speed reader. I just look at a couple words and I remember this passage because I've worked this test. A lot of people hate to ride the city subways. All right, first paragraph is about all these things that the narrator sees. Second paragraph is about the Salvation Army person getting on, giving out sandwiches, and then taking some donations. Then there's more about people seen on the bus. And then the last paragraph is about the mother's birthday and the kind people, and not on the bus, the subway. The kind people on the subway do not crush the flowers. And I apologize, I have to do this to make sure I'm recording, and then I won't have time to edit it out. So there's not a lot of focus, if there is even mention of how much it costs to ride the subway. But this is certainly not a passage or essay about convincing readers that the subway system is New York City's most economical means of public transportation. If it mentions it, maybe it mentions it once. It's certainly not the main idea. So it's going to be one of the no's, and A and B are both yes. So I would put little X's. Normally I just cross out on the letter itself, but I'm putting X's next to them because I need to reuse those letters. Let's see, C. No, because the essay focuses on the kinds of people riding the subways. That one seems right, okay? And then D. No, because the essay focuses on the writer's love of all public transportation. Wrong scope. The essay doesn't focus on all public transportation. It focuses on one specific thing, the subways. So the answer is C, and I believe that one is 15. Let me scroll up to that one here to give you the topic. Writer's Goal, Chapter 20. I just couldn't remember the chapter. So C is the correct answer for that one. And now let me get rid of those. And we will continue with the next one in your list, which is number 16. 16. During World War II, a group of Navajo soldiers developed a code that became one of the most successful in U.S. military history. This group, question 16, known as the Navajo Code Talkers, took part in every assault the U.S. Marines conducted in the Pacific from 1942 to 1945. And then it goes on with some extra information. All right, so is there a question? No. Is there an option to delete? Nope. All right, so this group, are we doing 16? Yes, we are. This group, comma, known as the Navajo Code Talkers, comma. So notice there's commas around known as the Navajo Code Talkers. That's non-essential information. I'm evaluating whether the underline is right or wrong. This group, I can remove the non-essential information and see if the sentence still makes sense without it. This group took part in every assault the U.S. Marines conducted in the Pacific from 1942 to 1945. Yeah, the group of Navajo soldiers. So it's right as written. I don't need to worry about anything else. There's a comma in front of known and a comma after talkers, indicating that that is non-essential information. 16 should have to do with sentences and fragments, commas, and I would add to it essential, non-essential. Sometimes as I write explanations, I figure out that there's more topics to something than I originally thought. So 16, the answer is this group. The answer is F. And again, did I get the... Yes. Sentences and fragments, chapter 2. Commas, chapter 5. Essential, non-essential, chapter 4. The next number is number 17. And remember, now we had 2 underlines in the same sentence, which means we should know that there could be danger here. There might be something that's going to really mess us up because of 2 underlines in the same sentence. So this group, known as the Navajo Code Talkers, took part in every assault the U.S. Marines conducted in the Pacific from 1942 to 1945. That is an independent clause, comma. We can't change that comma after 1945. Transmitting information, comma, on tactics, comma, troop movements, comma, orders, comma, and other vital communications over telephone and radios. There's no question for 17. There's no option to delete. So I'm going to ask myself, is it right or wrong? And transmitting information, comma, on. That is a comma before a preposition. In general, do not use commas before prepositions unless the comma has some other purpose. This comma doesn't have some other purpose. How would I fix it? My anticipation is remove the comma after information. That comma is not needed. Everything else looks fine. And that is option C. It is option C. So remember, I eliminated A. A is wrong. I probably wouldn't even do this on the test. I wouldn't have to evaluate option by option. Well, yes, I would, because I'm trying to match it to my anticipation. So transmitting information on colon. That's like having a connecting word with a list that follows a colon. And we do not have connecting words on lists that follow colons. So it would be, if a colon was correct there, it would say conducting in the Pacific from 1942 to 1945, transmitting information, colon, on well, I guess the colon can't be right no matter what. Well, I guess you would say transmitting information, colon, enemy tactics, comma, troop movements, comma, orders, comma. Yeah, you just list them. I guess you could just list tactics. That would be the information. So you cannot have that connecting word with a colon. The reason I paused was I couldn't figure out how would be the proper way to list it. But the proper way to list it would just be to list it. You can't use a connecting word when you have the colon there. C is correct. D just puts the colon before information. And again, it would be not a complete thought. Transmitting. Transmitting what? So we can't put colon and then the information on tactics, troop movements. So that's why C is correct, because B and D make what's before the colon not a complete thought. And in general, you do not use a connecting word when you have a list after a colon. And C is a correct answer because it removes a comma in front of on. But you wouldn't have to deal with colons if you looked at 17 and followed the method of A. Does it have a question? Nope. Is there an option to delete or omit? Nope. In this case, let me look at what's there. Is it right or wrong? I say wrong, A is out, and then I remove the comma to fix it, and that's my anticipation, removing the comma before on. So 17, the answer is C, and then I better have in there commas, yes, colons, chapter 6, sentences and fragments, chapter 2, and do I even explain? Yes, I do. Colons follow independent clauses. B and D are wrong. So, because what's before the colon is not an independent clause. All right, the next one we have to look at is number 19. I'm sorry this isn't going to be edited. Like, maybe I got confused a little bit or paused too much, and I would normally delete that. But I don't have time for that right now. American military officials have been using cumbersome machines to encode and relay information during battles. Which one are we on again? 19. Okay, 2 underlines in one sentence. We have to be on watch, but we've already dealt with 18, or you already did. You understand it. American officials have been using, I would say had been using, because of the verb tense, and this is using cumbersome machines before this story which happened in the past. So the past before the past would be had, and that would be, let me see if I put it in there. Yes, verb tense. And did I don't know if I said B, but it's G, had. The second option is what I meant. All right, let's check it out. American military officials had been using, because it's past before the past, cumbersome machines to encode and relay information during battles. There is no question, there is no option to delete. So is what's there right or wrong? Well, you may not know it, and if you don't, you'd have to put this word aside and just come up with a word that works for you, or else just check the answer choices. You cannot eliminate a word that you don't know, nor can you choose it. So just put it to the side and check the words you do know. But I happen to know that cumbersome means it's kind of heavy and hard to carry around. So they had been using machines that are heavy and hard to carry around to encode and relay information during battles. That makes sense. It's correct as written. The option is A, no change. This one better be diction and register, which it is. Okay? Thorny machines. Thorny means difficult, but you wouldn't say it in this context. A path might be thorny because it's hard to walk through, but it's also a little bit too informal for the format of this essay, which ACT passages tend to be semi-formal. Strenuous. Well, carrying the machine is strenuous, but in context or the right idiom, you wouldn't say a machine is strenuous. Working with the machine could be strenuous. And then gawky is kind of slang term. It's way too informal. Gawky means kind of awkward, which, the machine could be awkward. That's kind of what cumbersome means. But gawky has the wrong register, the wrong tone. So the answer to this one is A. I was going to say A19, but it's A. And again, 19 is diction and register. Okay, the next one is 21. 21 appears to be transition words. It's got nevertheless, comma, these tests convince the officials. So we want to get rid of nevertheless and see what's being connected here. It says, let's see. In preliminary tests under simulated combat conditions, the Navajo encoded, transmitted, and decoded a 3-line message in 20 seconds. 2 underlines, it would have to be something like, whereas the machines required 30 minutes to perform the same job. So the Navajos did it fast, the machines took a long time, connected to the tests convinced the officials of the value. All right, those aren't contradictory, so you wouldn't want to use a word like however or something like that. They're not cause and effect. The Navajos being faster than the machines wouldn't cause the test to convince the officials of the value. Well, you know what? That's not bad, actually. It could be cause and effect. That could be okay. Or it could be some other form of same direction. However, if you look at, are we on 21? I have no short-term memory. 21. If you look at answer D, technically that is delete or omit. So sometimes with transition questions, you have to look at the last option and see if it's just deleting the transition word. And if so, then use it. So D is really delete omit. I would check it first. These tests convince the officials of the value. Okay, that works. So I'd say D is correct. As far as a transition word, I might say therefore. The machines were faster, or the Navajo were faster than the machines. Therefore, these tests convince the officials of the value. There is no option for therefore. There's nevertheless, which is opposite. We said it's not opposite, so A is out. You wouldn't even have to do this normally because we found out that delete and omit worked on this one. But let's say you didn't recognize it was delete omit, and you said therefore. A would be out because it's nevertheless. B says similarly. Well, machines convincing officials, or the tests convincing officials of the value isn't similar to Navajo being faster than machines. That's convincing someone is not similar to the results of a test. So you can't, it's a false comparison. So we wouldn't compare it. B is out. C says still, which is also opposite direction. I am tall. Still, I cannot reach high places. It's opposite direction. So D is correct, just these. So maybe you didn't even recognize that was really kind of omit, delete. And again, put it in your notes. Sometimes with transition word ones, the last one, well, sometimes it's not even the last option. sometimes one of the options omits or deletes the transition word. So see if there's an option that deletes or omits the transition word, or maybe just check the last option and see if that one does. And if it does, see if omitting or deleting is right. All right, so that's 21, and it better be transitions, chapter 17, and the answer is D. We just deleted the transition. Okay, next, 21, 24 and 25, okay? 24, it says, the Navajo language is complex with a structure and sounds that makes them unintelligible. Well, I know we're not doing 23, but we're talking about the language, so it would be it. And then its structure and sounds, which is plural, so it would have to be make. So it would have to be make it unintelligible to anyone without extensive exposure to it. Is there a question? No, there is not. Is there an option to delete or omit for 24? Nope. Let's look at what's there. Exposure to it. That seems reasonable. You can have exposure to something, like exposure to the cold or exposure to an idea. So 2 is correct. I wouldn't change it. That is option F. And 24, I think, is diction and register again. Yes, chapter 16, diction and register. The next one is 25. Which of the following alternatives to the underlined portion would not be acceptable? Right, it says, outside Navajo communities, such exposure is rare. That's an independent clause. Which greatly contributed to its success. Now, 26 is in the same sentence. Beware, there's 2 underlines in the same sentence. But the question asks, which alternative would not be acceptable? That means what's there is acceptable, and it's basically, let me get rid of those extra things there. It's basically this, independent, let me use my pen so I know where I'm writing. Independent clause, comma, non-essential information, which is a correct formation. So we know it's correct because they tell us it is. They say which alternative to the underlined portion would not be acceptable. That means what's underlined is acceptable. So we want something, you can anticipate this. You could also look at the answer choices and see which one is not acceptable. I would say if you put a period between rare and which, or a semicolon, that would not be acceptable. If I replaced which with this, something like that, or a subject, exposure greatly contributed to its success, then all of a sudden I'd have 2 independent clauses stuck together with just, say, a comma like it is. So there's various ways to break it. Let's see what they have. Rare, semicolon, this. Well, what follows the semicolon, this greatly contributed to its success. They removed the W word. So now we have a subject, this. We have a verb, contributed, complete thought. It's 2 independent clauses connected. Therefore, we could use a semicolon or a period. A and C are both identical, technically. It's just different punctuation between independent clauses. A comma fanboy and this would also be wrong. So there's our rule of thumb on the cheat sheet. If you see period and semicolon, just a single semicolon, and everything else the same, you can pick neither because they're both wrong. In this case, they're both wrong answer choices because they would both be acceptable. That would be a period or semicolon or proper punctuation between independent clauses. B creates a second independent clause. This greatly contributed to its success, but then it puts no punctuation between that and the first independent clause. B is not acceptable, and D just adds different non-essential information after the comma or formats it differently. A factor that greatly contributed to its success, that is not an independent clause. It's just non-essential information after the comma. So 25 is B, and the topics are sentences and fragments, chapter 2, punctuation between sentences, chapter 3, and commas, chapter 5. So all of those things were going on with that one. Next is 27. The Navajo developed and mesmerized the code. I think it says memorized. The Navajo developed and memorized the code. There is no question. There's no option to delete or omit. So let's look at what's there. Is it right or wrong? The Navajo developed and memorized the code. Seems fine to me, no change. Now, if we actually want to go through and analyze those choices by matter of explanation, and as I'm saying that, let me delete this extra stuff from there. B says the Navajo, who were various heights and weights. There's no other information about their stature in the paragraph, either there or before it. So why are we mentioning their heights and weights? You could, and the punctuation there is correct for B. It's got commas around non-essential information, but I've got no reason to mention it. Notice also the correct answer, the Navajo, is shorter than B and C and D. Shorter, if you had a guess on this one, guess the shorter one in number of words. Being C, being of various heights and weights, the Navajo. Okay, again, it's talking about their height and weight. Why would we do that? So B is out, it adds information that's not necessary. C is out, it adds unnecessary information. And a good clue to that is it's so long. And then D, the Navajo of different sizes. Again, here we go talking about their sizes. I mean, what are we, tailors, and we have to measure them for a suit or something? We don't care about their sizes. There's no other information about sizes. Size isn't important in this paragraph. We're not talking about them in comparison to other things. Excuse me. Or their ability to fight. Maybe size would be better if they were big so they could fight better, if they were small so they could duck better and not get hit by bullets in the war. But size isn't important here. So A is correct, which we never would have even seen B, C, or D if we went through and just checked in order of operation like we do. Is there a question? No. Option to delete or omit. If there is, check it first. It's right more than half the time. If not, or if delete omit doesn't work, then look at what's there. Is it right or wrong? We decided that the Navajo developed and memorized the code is right, so we pick no change. All right, 28. Unfortunately, the code talkers sometimes faced dangerous peril from their own side. Is there a question? No. Is there an option to omit? Yes. Unfortunately, the code talkers sometimes faced peril from their own side. Aha! That sounds fine to me. I pick J, omit, delete. And if we want to analyze all the choices, we can see that dangerous peril is redundant. Dangerous means perilous. Peril means danger. This is like saying the code talkers sometimes face dangerous danger. That's why that is wrong. Hazardous also means dangerous. Hazardous peril, dangerous hazards, perilous danger, perilous hazards. It would all be redundant, and risky also means dangerous. So F, G, and H are redundant. J is correct, and 28 does in fact have to do with redundancy. Shorter is better. So okay, that one is J. All right, let's look at the next one on your list, which is 30 through 32. It says, now that the Navajo code is no longer used, the code talkers whose secret work saved American lives can finally receive public recognition. Is there a question? No. Is there an option to delete or omit? No. Let's look at what's there. Is it right or wrong? It says, now that the Navajo code is no longer used, the code talker, whose secret work saved American lives, that's a non-essential phrase, can finally receive public recognition for their actions. Seems fine to me. I would pick no change. If we want to look at the other answer choices, notice that all of them are more words than F. By keeping as short as possible, being concise, F would win out. If you had a guess, I'd pick F because it's the fewest number of words. Hush, hush actions, G. A little bit too slangy. It's a little bit too informal for the tone of this essay. Concealed, hidden efforts. That one's got redundancy. Concealed and hidden mean the same thing. Doings, whose doings kept under wraps saved American lives. Well, kept under wraps is a long way of saying secret. Doings is kind of an informal way of saying actions. So this is too informal with doings, and I think kept under wraps is also too informal, and then it's also too long. So 30 is too long. So let's see. 30, the question has to do with diction and register, Chapter 16. Redundancy, shorter is better, Chapter 15. The correct answer is F. All right, what is the next one? 30 through 32. See, I already forgot that we had to do all of those. It says, when storyteller Mary Carter Smith practices her art and everyone listens. Okay, what happens then? W words break sentences. So when storyteller Mary Carter Smith practices her art, now we better have some kind of a subject and verb, because when storyteller Mary Carter Smith practices her art, there's no main verb there. And if we have it connected with and, everybody listens, there's still no subject and main verb. It's all part of the W phrase. But anyway, 31 has no question. There's no option to delete or omit. Ask yourself, is what's there right or wrong? It's wrong. We don't have a subject and verb. How would you fix it? Well, I might put a comma after art, and then and remove the and then it would read, when storyteller Mary Carter Smith practices her art, comma, everybody listens. Everybody subject, listens verb. It's a complete thought. When storyteller Mary Carter Smith practices her art is an introductory phrase. So let's see if we have that choice. A is already out. Smith, comma, practices her art. No, B is out because that is a comma between a subject and verb, or noun and verb. Smith practices her art. That's got the extra comma after Smith. We don't need that comma. D, Smith practices her art, comma. That matches my anticipation. C was out and D works. So the answer is D for 31. And I would imagine that 31 has to do with sentences and fragments, chapter 2, and commas, chapter 5. What is the next one? I believe it's 32. Yes, 30 through 32. It says, Smith is, and though many of the stories are intended to make an audience laugh, Smith is fully aware of the other values of storytelling. Indeed, she identifies strongly with the griots of West Africa, those village storytellers where they use songs, poems, and narration to help preserve and transmit culture and history. So again, 2 underlines in the same sentence. Be on watch. So warning to you, there might be other problems that you'll run into because you'll never get it to sound right. But let's see the 2 things that are connected. We forget about indeed. And though many of the stories are intended to make the audience laugh, Smith is fully aware of the other values of storytelling. So they may be funny, but Smith is aware of other values of storytelling besides being funny. She identifies strongly with the griots of West Africa, those village storytellers who use songs, poems, and narration. So what is the relation between those 2 things? Well, it's not opposite. They don't contradict each other. She's aware of the other values, does not contradict. She identifies with the griots of West Africa. It's not cause and effect. Her being aware of the values doesn't cause her to be identified strongly with the griots. I mean, I'm aware of the value of storytelling. I do not identify with the griots of West Africa, although I may tell stories of a different type. For example, teaching people about ACT. Well, that's a type of story, but it's not like the griots of West Africa do, so I don't identify them. So it's not cause and effect. It's some other form of same direction. Maybe something like in fact I would put there. Smith is fully aware of the other values of storytelling. In fact, she identifies strongly with the griots of West Africa. Well, I don't know. Does that mean? Yeah, that kind of fits, in fact. So I would use that. I forgot even to check. Was there an option to delete or omit? No, there's not. All right, so let's see. F is indeed. Indeed, in fact, kind of mean the same thing. Okay, that's good. Well, I don't know. That's very informal. However is opposite, so that's out. And J, at once, there's not a timing element here. So the answer is indeed, or as I anticipated, in fact. Smith is aware of the other values of storytelling. In fact, and what's not said is because she knows they're so valuable, she identifies strongly with the griots of West Africa. Okay, so in fact or indeed, F is correct for 32, and that one would be transitions. All right, next one. 34. I keep forgetting what the next one is. Which of the following alternatives to the underlined portion would not be acceptable? All right, that means what's there is acceptable. Smith is the official griot of both the city of Baltimore and the state of Maryland. And then it's got a semicolon. She has served as a griot in residence at several universities. So there's 2 independent clauses connected with semicolon. What would be incorrect? I can anticipate it, or if you want to, you could look at all the answer choices. I'm going to anticipate. What if I replace that semicolon with just a comma or with nothing? So in other words, 2 independent clauses connected with nothing. Or if I left the semicolon or period and put something like whilst, no, I can't put while serving. Smith is the official griot of both the city of Baltimore and the state of Maryland. Who has served? If I put a W word there, who has served? Well, then what follows the semicolon or period wouldn't be an independent clause, and that would also be wrong. All right, I've come up with some anticipations. You can if you want to for this type of question. Maybe you didn't. Let's look at F. It says, State of Maryland, period, she has served. Well, remember, all things equal, if there's semicolon and period, you can pick neither. Both of them are correct here, so you can't pick F. F is out, and I'm going to mark it out on the list. Okay, let's look at G. It says Maryland, comma, and she. Well, comma, fanboys, and it's the right fanboy there, so that one's out too. Maryland and has served. Well, there's no subject for the next part, so now there's just a compound. Smith is the official agreement and State of Maryland and has served. Compound verb. She is and has served. So it's a compound verb. And J is what I anticipated. They kept the she in there, so kept the second independent clause and just put a comma between them. You cannot have just a comma between independent clauses. You must have comma plus fanboys. So J is correct. It's got the wrong punctuation between two independent clauses. This is 34, which is Sentences and Fragments, Chapter 2, Punctuation Between Sentences, Chapter 3. All right, let me get rid of those marks. And we go on to the next one, which is 34, 38. At this point, the writer is considering adding the following true statement. In high school, Smith was a member of both the drama and speech club. I know it's drama, but she was a member of both clubs. So let's see what it says here. She wrote this story about a poor African-American girl whose rags are transformed into magnificent African-style robes or gowns. Over time, she was invited to perform in churches, libraries, and museums. And then all of a sudden, we're talking about what she did in high school, and then she realized the extent of her gift when her friend Alex Haley. No, at this point in the passage, we're not talking about her being in high school. So I would say it's one of the no's. F and G are out. And by the way, this type of question, I think it's just called, is it relevant, add, replace, relief? Yeah, relevance, inserting, deleting, chapter 18. All right, we know we crossed out F and G, so we know it's one of the no's. I would say no because it doesn't fit with what's being talked about at this portion of the essay. No, because it contradicts the point made earlier that Smith worked for 30 years as a teacher and librarian. Well, no, it doesn't. This would have been before she became a teacher and librarian. She could have been a member of the drama and speech clubs. I know it's drama. So H is out. It wouldn't contradict it. It's got to be J. Let me cross out H. J. No, because it distracts the reader from the main focus of the paragraph and does not logically fit at this point in the essay. Exactly. If it doesn't logically fit, it's what's the word they use? Distracting. I was going to say transmitting for some reason. I don't know. So notice the beginning of the paragraph. If this was up near the beginning of the paragraph, it said she had been interested in theater since her youth, and then her own recognizing her talent grew gradually. It could go in between that and then talking about 30 years as a teacher. But at this point in the essay, no, because we're past her youth. We're talking about her adult years, and now we're going to suddenly mention something that, again, happened when she was a kid. Absolutely not. And so the answer is J. It distracts the reader from the main focus of the paragraph and does not fit at this point in the essay. So J is it. And let me delete those so we can use that again. And what's the next one? And what was that one? That one was 38. Okay, what's the next one we got here? 40. Let's see. Smith realized the extent of her gift when her friend Alex Haley, who had gathered essential material critical to writing his best-selling novel Roots from a griot in Gambia, began to refer to her as my American griot. So, what number are we on? 40. So, is there an option to delete or omit? No. Is what's written there right or wrong? It says, Smith realized the extent of her gift when her friend Alex Haley, I think there needs to be a comma after Haley, but we're not fixing that one right now, who had gathered essential material critical to writing his best-selling novel. So notice we've already mentioned this is essential material. If it's essential material, it's also critical material. So there's redundancy there. So I imagine number 40, hopefully, I called it redundancy, chapter 15. I mean, you can say redundancy, shorter is better, or redundancy, chapter 15. Okay, so how would I fix it? Because I've already mentioned that it's essential. So I might say, Smith realized the extent of her gift when her friend Alex Haley, who had gathered essential material for his best-selling novel, Roots. I would just get rid of all that critical to writing because we already know it's critical. It's essential. All right, let's see. F, we've already eliminated. G says 4. G looks good. F is out. G matches our anticipation. H, important to. Well, important means essential. J mentions essential again. So H and J are both redundant, and therefore the correct answer is G. Just remove the redundancy. And that one has to do with redundancy, chapter 15. All right, next one. What number was that? 40. So now we have 42. Given that all the choices are quotations from Mary Carter Smith, which one would best support the argument the writer is making concerning Smith's belated discovery of her own talent? All right, so it says, hearing that was like a man who has shoed horses all his life being told you're a blacksmith. And hearing what? It's that above it, it says that Alex Haley began to refer to her as my American griot. So hearing that was like a man who has shoed horses all his life being told you're a blacksmith. It says, given that all the choices and quotations from Mary Carter Smith, which one best supports the argument that the writer is making concerning Smith's belated discovery? So the discovery is that she thought she wasn't a writer. She thought she wasn't a griot. And then all of a sudden Alex Haley said, you're my American griot. So she's discovered it. Well, would that be like a man who has shoed horses all his life? She's been a griot all her life or for a long time. Being told you're a blacksmith. Being told, like she was, you're my American griot. Well, yeah, those are almost identical. One is in the world of writing and storytelling, while the one underlined is in the world of shoeing horses, but it's the same thing. So that one looks good. Let us say F. Sounds good to me. H, or G rather. You've got to reveal truths to your listeners. That's about telling the truth or revealing truths. That's not about finding out late in life, after you've shoed horses all your life, after you've been a griot telling stories that are meaningful for 20 years, all of a sudden being told, you're my American griot. All of a sudden being told, you are a blacksmith. Okay, so G is out. H, through his novel Roots, Alex Haley was in some ways performing the function of a griot. Well, that's about Alex Haley. That's not about the author or about Mary Carter Smith. And the question is about which one would support the argument that the writer is making concerning Smith's belated discovery. So the answer choice has to be about Smith. H is not. J, I'd say that one of the most crucial moments in my development as a storyteller is a few hours I once spent listening to a griot, she recalls. Well, spending time listening to a griot is not a revelation concerning a belated discovery of your own talent. Listening to a griot is appreciating the talent of someone else. So H is out, G is out, H is out, J is out. We're left with F. Yes, a man who has shoed horses all his life being told you're a blacksmith. It's like the Wizard of Oz. You know, the scarecrow wanted a brain, and he's been smart the whole time. And the wizard tells him, why, you've always had a brain. And the lion, why, you've always had courage. And the Tin Man, you've always had a heart. He discovered it late. He's been doing this all this time, and he discovered it only now that he actually had it. So that's the answer. The answer is F. Man who has shoed horses all his life, and now being told he's a blacksmith is like her, having told stories for many years, now being told you've been a griot. You're a griot. You're already there. Okay, so F is the answer for 42. Let me delete these things. And the next one is 43. Today, Smith's repertoire is so vast that she could speak consecutively for 12 hours straight without running out of material. And there is no question, there is an option to omit. Today, Smith's repertoire is so vast that she could speak for 12 hours straight without running out of material. I think omit works. And consecutively means straight. So it's repetitious. The answer is D. Continuously nonstop repeats 12 hours straight twice more. So it's double repetitious. And then C, perpetually for 12 hours straight. Speaking straight through, speaking perpetually forever during the 12 hours, both mean the same thing. But we wouldn't have even had to check those other answer choices. D, omit the underlined portion which we checked first, works. We don't have to repeat it. And 43 has to do with redundancy, I hope, chapter 15. Okay, the next one is 45. Suppose a writer had intended to write a brief essay focusing on the various ways that storytelling influences community values. Would this essay successfully fulfill the writer's goal? Okay, 45 is obviously writer's goal. And now again, you have to get the main idea which you're going to compare the goal to while you read the essay. I would say the main idea of this is Mary Carter Smith, who was like a griot. She was a storyteller, and it's about her being a storyteller. The goal says various ways that storytelling influences community values. It may have mentioned it at one point, the importance of storytelling and how it influences community values, but that's not what the whole essay is about. The whole essay is about Mary Carter Smith being a storyteller. So it doesn't match. It's the scope is wrong. It's not focusing on the way storytelling influences community values. It's focusing on how Mary Carter Smith is a storyteller and may have mentioned storytelling once or twice, or the importance to the community once or twice. So it's one of the no's. A or B is out. A and B. Say goodbye to those. Okay. C, no, because the essay focuses on the griots of West Africa, not on community values. No, it doesn't. It focuses on one specific griot. So the scope is wrong, and it's not even in West Africa. It's in America. No, because the essay's main focus is on one storyteller and the way in which she practices her art. Yes, it's about Mary Carter Smith and all about her being a griot. So D is correct for number 45. And again, I believe number 45... Oh, wait, I went one ahead. Writer's goal. I thought it was pronouns, agreement, and case. No, it's writer's goal. Okay, so D for writer's goal. All right, let's check the next one. I apologize. I went to my video software screen. The next number we have to look at is 46. It says, 46. Joe is 7, living in those 2 or 3 years when they can manage to throw a baseball a few feet. But when what they're really interested in are things closer at hand, bugs, butterflies, dirt, if they're in the infield, grass, if they're in the outfield. 2 underlines in the same sentence. Beware. It's danger. But now my question is, who is they referring to? Joe is 7, living in these 2 years. Well, first of all, let's look at it. Is there a question? No. Option to delete or omit? No. Is it right or wrong? Who is they referring to? Joe is 7. There has to be an antecedent. Living in those 2 years when they who? Our son is starting playing organized t-ball, beginner's version of baseball. Is they referring to baseball? I don't know. There is no clear antecedent. So I say it's wrong. How would you fix it? Well, kids, when kids can manage to throw a baseball, or children can manage to throw a baseball, or even people can manage to throw a baseball, that's what I anticipate as the fix. And I had to just check to see if my letters are clear. All right, so we know that F is out. Children. G looks good. It's exactly one of the things that I anticipated. Children or kids or something like that. He is another pronoun. No antecedent. Some of them, no antecedent. So H and J are out. Goodbye. F we already eliminated. G is it, because we need to know who we're talking about. All right, that's 46. And that one has to do with pronouns, agreement, and case. A pronoun must have an antecedent, and it must be clear. 49 through 54. Yeah. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to, well, maybe I'm not. I'll just try to remember that I'm doing 49 through 54, but I won't. All right, 49. Wait a minute. I have to pause a second. Something just landed on my monitor. It's not as if the outfielders' positions matter much, though. The ball never gets hit hard enough to reach there. Okay, never gets hard enough to reach the outfield. 49 said, The writer wishes to add the following sentences in order to emphasize the uncertainty already expressed about an idea in the paragraph. I still have doubts. The new sentence would best amplify and be placed after sentence what? Now, I recommend that people in your boat, people who don't need anything above a 30, do not worry about sentence and paragraph order. I'll still deal with it. 49 obviously is sentence and paragraph order. Okay, that's what I put there. I always like to check my topic list to make sure I got it right. So let's check this. It says the writer wishes to add the following sentences in order to emphasize the uncertainty already expressed about an idea. I still have doubts. All right, let's see. After sentence 1, it better talk about something they could have doubts. Our son has started playing organized t-ball, a beginner's version of baseball. I still have doubts. Doubts about what? That it's a beginner's version of baseball? I guess this also has to do with modification. I wouldn't have doubts about it being a beginner's version of baseball. That's what right next to it. Well, this one may be an easier than normal sentence order question. Okay, 2 says organized is what parents call it anyway. I still have doubts. I still have doubts that it's really organized. Joe is 7, living in those 2 or 3 years when kids manage to throw a baseball a few feet. All right, that seems right after 2. Let's look about after 3. After 3, Joe is 7, living in those 2 or 3 years when they can manage to throw a baseball a few feet, but when what they're really interested in are things closer at hand, bugs, butterfly, dirt, and grass. I still have doubts. Well, what do you have doubts about there? That it's dirt and grass? So I would say C is out. So we eliminated A. B we said probably. C is eliminated. And let's look at D. What is D? D is after sentence 4. So sentence 4 is children of that age still think nothing of doing little dances in the outfield, often with their backs to home plate and consequently the batter. I still have my doubts. You have your doubts that their backs are to the batter? Okay, that doesn't make sense. So it is B. It's after sentence 2. And like I said, this is sentence and paragraph order. I would tend to skip those unless you need a score over 30. But this one may have a flavor of modification, so it would be okay. All right, what number was that? 49. I think we're doing 49 through 54. Yes, we are. I think it is. Yes, 49 through 54. Here's number 50. It's not as if the outfielder's positions matter much. The ball never gets hit hard enough to reach there. Since there's not much chance that a 7-year-old just learning the game can hit a pitch baseball, the umpire puts the ball on top of the stationary tee, a piece of rubber or a piece of tubing adjusted to each batter's height. I don't know. I call it rubber tubing on a tee like that. All right, so let's see. What 2 things are connected? Well, this is kind of a backwards one. The umpire, the thing that's connected is the umpire puts the ball on a tee. Connected to, there's not much chance that a 7-year-old just learning the game can hit a pitch baseball. All right, what kind of relationship is that? Well, the umpire puts the ball on a tee because there's not much chance that a 7-year-old just learning the game can hit a pitch baseball. In other words, because the kids can't hit, the kids not being able to hit causes the umpire to have to put the ball on the tee. That's cause and effect. Let me compare it. I would use something like because there's not much chance, something like that. All right, F, since. Yep, since means because. So that one looks good. G, while. While is either opposite or at the same time. Well, these aren't opposites. The umpire puts the ball on the tee because the kids can't hit the pitched ball. Although, opposite. J, unless there's not much chance. So, unless the kids can't hit a ball, the umpire will put the ball on the tee. That doesn't make sense. It's unless the kids can hit a pitched ball, the umpire would put the ball on the tee. So J is out. G, how is while opposite? While I am tall, comma, I cannot reach high places. While can mean opposite like that. So the correct answer is F, since. This is cause and effect. There not being much chance that a 7-year-old just learning the game can hit a ball, that causes the umpire to put the ball on top of a stationary tee. It's the reason the umpire has to do that. All right, we're doing 49 to 54. So that one is F for 50. 51. Which of the following alternatives to the underlined portion would not be acceptable? It says, if batters repeatedly fail to hit the ball, and lots of them do, The umpire is patient, giving them 4 or 5 chances instead of the usual 3. So that's correct. It's a correct alternative. If batters repeatedly fail to hit the ball, and lots of them do, subject umpire is the verb, patient, and then comma, an ing phrase, which is additional information. All right, how would I fix it, or how would I break it? What would be incorrect? I can anticipate a few. Period, giving them 4 or 5 chances. Semicolon, giving them 4 or 5 chances. Or I might say he gives them 4 or 5 chances and keep the comma between it. So have a comma between 2 independent clauses, or put a period or semicolon or comma fanboys between what's not 2 independent clauses. All right, let's see which one they come up with. In 51, I always wonder with these what it's going to end up being. Sentences and fragments, yes. Commas, yes. Oh, yeah, see, that's the thing. A lot of times these are also about commas and essential and non-essential information. Okay? Anything else? I thought I saw another one. No. Okay. So which of the following alternatives to the underlined portion would not be accepted? The umpire patiently gives them 4 or 5 chances. That works. The umpire, who is patient, gives them 4 or 5 chances. Sure, who is patient can be non-essential information. The umpire, who patiently gives them 4 or 5 chances instead of the usual 3, does what? This W word, who, grabs the verb, patiently gives. So now there's no main verb in the sentence. C is not acceptable. And then D would be the umpire, the patient umpire gives them 4 or 5 chances. Yeah, that works fine. So the problem with C is it breaks the second independent clause, or I'm sorry, it breaks the whole independent clause because it grabs up what has to be the main verb, and there is no main verb with C. All right, so the answer is C for 51, and again, that has to do with sentences and fragments, essential and non-essential information, and commas. I'm just asking myself, does that have to have... Nope, I guess it doesn't have to have punctuation between because that's never a question. All right, we're doing 49 through 54. So now we have to go to 52, which is relevance, inserting, and deleting, but I still haven't read it. So let's check it out. If the writer, were to delete the word repeatedly and the phrase "and lots of them do" from the preceding sentence, that means the sentence before, the sentence would lose what? Well, what is the sentence before? It says, if batters repeatedly fail to hit the ball, so if I removed repeatedly, it would remove the idea of it happening over and over again, and lots of them do. And that's the other thing I want them to miss. So I think it would, the umpire is patient, giving them 4 or 5 chances instead of the usual 3. So I think if you remove repeatedly, and lots of them do, it would remove the reason for the umpire having to give them extra chances. That's my anticipation. So let's check it out. A tone of admiration. No, there's no admiration there. It's just like repetition. Details about the rule of T-ball. There's no rules mentioned. An explanation of why children fail. No, it's not why they fail. A sense of how difficult the task is for children. Yeah, if I remove that they repeatedly fail, and I remove the idea that lots of them do, then it might seem like, well, if batters fail to hit the ball, who knows? Maybe they fail one time, or maybe only a few of them fail. So lots of them do tells us that a lot of the children fail, and repeatedly fail mean over and over and over again. They just can't hit it because it's very difficult for these little people. So J is the answer to 52. And again, this is relevance. Add, replace, delete. Okay, got it. The next one we're doing is 53. I keep forgetting how far we're going. When a batter finally makes contact, the ball dribbles into the infield, where the nearest player usually ends up throwing the ball at the first baseman's feet, or, if the fielder is precocious, over the first baseman's head. Okay, is there a question? No. Option to delete or omit? No. Let's ask ourselves if it's right or wrong as written. Usually ends up throwing the ball where the nearest player usually ends up throwing the ball at the first baseman's feet. That seems right to me. So I think the answer is A. And then let's look at the other ones. Accomplishes a result. Well, when you accomplish something, it is a result. B has redundancy. Hopefully I put redundancy in with 53. Yeah, diction and register and redundancy. I did put it in there. And then see, you wouldn't even have to check these because we decided that what's there is right. But if you couldn't or you struggled with it, you'd have to check the choices. Attains the consequence of. Well, yeah, if you attain something, it would be the consequence of. So that's redundant. And then results in. Well, the player doesn't result in something. The play results in the player throwing the ball. So that one is kind of it's all mixed up. Boy, what does that have to be? That has to be modification. What chapter is that? Well, I'll figure it out later. Pardon me because I have to find modification. Modification is chapter 12. And this is number 53. If I don't fix it now, I'll forget to fix it. And that will be very bad. 53 has to do with modification. All right, so the answer is A. Ends up is fine. Fine as it is. All right, we also have to do 54. In a T-ball league, one needs to do something to keep the score from reaching triple digits in the early going. There's a rule, therefore, that says the runner must stop when any fielder from the other team picks up the ball and holds it aloft. So all the kids have to do is hold the ball up. I think the other reason for that rule is if you've ever watched T-ball, kids might tend to throw the ball at other kids who are running, and then someone could get hurt. So it's a good reason. All right, so let's see the things being connected. In a T-ball league, one needs to do something to keep the score from reaching triple digits. So we got to stop the score from getting too high and then the game taking too long. There's a rule that says the runner must stop when any fielder from the other team picks up the ball. Well, what's the relationship? Those aren't opposites. Having to do something to stop the score from reaching triple digit is not opposite or contradicted by there having to be a rule that says the runner has to stop. In fact, it's the same. And is it cause and effect? Yes. In a T-ball league, you have to do something to keep the score from getting too high. Therefore, you make a rule that says if they hold the ball aloft, the runner must stop running. Okay, it's cause and effect. Therefore, well, that matches F. Therefore, instead is opposite. Therefore worked. Instead doesn't work. Likewise, a runner must stop when any fielder from the teams pick up the ball is not likewise to there needing to be a way to stop the score. Although one causes the other, they're not similar. You can't compare them. That'd be like saying your weight is similar to a scale. The scale measures the weight, but they're not similar. You can't compare them. And then meanwhile, that means at the same time, you know what? Meanwhile could work if you didn't have therefore. But we have therefore, so meanwhile is out. So the answer to 54 is therefore. And 54, better say, transitions, which it does. And then do we have to do 55? No, we do 57. Okay. 57 has to do with pronoun, agreement, and case. All right, let's see why. Once they've picked it up, they look at it quizzically for a while and then look up to see what all the ruckus is about. What it's about, a bleacher section full of parents, each adult frantically holding up a stiff arm. What it's about. Okay, let's see. Is there a question? No. Is there an option to delete or omit? No. What it's about, a bleacher section. What it is about. You know, that would be right if it said what it's about is a bleacher section full of parents. But in the way that that's used, it's incorrect, what it's about. I would just get rid of what and say it's about a bleacher. It is about a bleacher section full of parents, each adult frantically holding up a stiff arm. You could also just go by how it sounds. I mean, if what it's about a bleacher section doesn't sound right, it's about a bleacher section full of parents may sound right. That may be the way to evaluate them, and just do your best with the way it sounds. It won't get you 100%, but maybe it'll get you a better score than you currently have or you had scored before. All right, which answer choice matches our anticipation? C, it's. That is correct. Let's move on. And 57 again was pronouns, agreement, and case. Well, I don't know. What it's about. That seems to be idiom to me. That is about a bleacher section full of parents. That's about. D, that doesn't mean that is about, and we need to have a sentence here. So I don't know. We may have to change 57. I'm not going to do it now. I don't think it's about pronouns. I think it's more about sentences and fragments and idiom. Well, let me put that in there. Well, I'll do that later. Okay, because I can't remember the chapters, and I don't want to take any extra time now to keep looking these things up, what chapter it is. All right, 58 says, the child with the ball wonders at the grown-ups' odd, noisy behavior. All right, so how many grown-ups are there? There's many grown-ups. Well, first of all, is there a question? No. Option to delete or omit? No. The child with the ball wonders at the grown-ups' odd, noisy behavior. So is it right or wrong? Well, there's many grown-ups, and the behavior belongs to the grown-ups. So grown-up apostrophe S means there would only be one grown-up. But it says a bleacher section full of parents. There's many grown-ups. And to make a plural word that ends in S, possessive, you just put an apostrophe after the S. So it would be GROWN-UPS apostrophe would be correct. And that's G is correct. And 58 is apostrophes, plural possessive. Yes, it is. All right, the next one I have to do is 60. Suppose the writer had, this is another writer's goal. So that's writer's goal, chapter 20. Suppose the writer had intended to write an essay describing one child's experiences playing t-ball. Would this essay accomplish the writer's goal? Well, just from what I read, the passage seems to be about t-ball in general, not just one child. One child's experience is too specific. Many children's experience, maybe, but I think it's more about t-ball in general than even many children's experience. So I would say it's one of the no's. So 60, wait a minute. F and G are out because they're both yeses. So it's going to be one of the no's. Let's see which no it is. No, because while it mentions that the narrator's son Joe plays t-ball, it also notes he is more interested in things such as dirt and bugs. Well, no, because the dirt and bugs were set in the context of t-ball. He's playing t-ball and little kids like to look at dirt and bugs. But again, the passage isn't even about one child's experiences playing t-ball. It may mention his son. I don't remember if it did specifically or not. But certainly the whole passage isn't about the son. Okay, no, because although the t-ball experience of the narrator's son Joe are alluded to, it is primarily about the general features of t-ball games. That's what I would say. It's more about t-ball than it is, certainly, than it is about one child's experience playing t-ball or even many child's or children. So J is it. It's just about t-ball in general, so it wouldn't fit the goal. So remember, sometimes these goal questions often have to do with scope. Is it specific or is it general? And that's writer's goal, chapter 20. And the next one we have to do is 63 to 74. Okay, well, let's see if I can remember that I'm doing all of those. In fact, I'm going to write right here. 63 to 74. That way, maybe if I come back to this, I will remember that I have to do all of those. Which of the following alternatives to the underlined portion would not be acceptable? This says, if a feather breaks off with the stub of its hollow quill shaft still in place, the bird's body mistakenly believes the feather is whole. Period. All right. So who knows? Is this about a word? Whole is correct. How would I anticipate fixing it or breaking it? I don't know. I can't even imagine what the anticipation would be. Believes the feather is, I don't know. I can't even think of it. So let's check it out. Whole. I think it's about the meaning of the word. A, sound means intact. Whole in this context. So that one works. Complete. Yeah. Believes the feather is complete. The feather is total. Well, total means the whole thing, but not in this context. It's just, this is about diction and register, I think. Let me look and make sure I said that. 63 is about diction and register. So I would say diction and register, chapter 16. It's just about the way words are used, and you wouldn't say the feather is total. I mean, total means the full thing, but not in this context. It's not used this way. And then the feather can be intact. So the answer is C, and it's just the way you could have a total feather, but not the feather is total. You know, when a car is broken, and really a bad accent, we say the car is totaled. That means it's a total loss. But if the car I just bought a new car. The car is total. Yeah, we wouldn't say that. A lot of there was a meteor shower, and it destroyed all kinds of cars on the road. My car, however, was intact, or sound, or complete, or whole. I wouldn't say my car is total. It's just not the way the word is used. There's no other way to say it. Okay? So we're doing 63 to 74. Given that all the choices are true, so again, the answer for 63 is C. Given that all the choices are true, which one most clear? Oh, I also noticed, wait a minute, I didn't have the answer written down here or marked in here, so somehow that got omitted. And C. Okay, so let me save that now because I made a change to it. All right, 64. Given that all the choices are true, which one most clearly provides a reason for the statement that follows? All right, 64, I believe, is relevance. Relevance, inserting, deleting, chapter 18. All right, 64. Quills are hollow, so the removal of a quill stub before it is ready to be naturally shed would be very painful. Okay, so the statement that follows is removing it before it's ready to be naturally shed would be very painful. So what one would justify that? All right, F, they're hollow. I don't know, being hollow, would that make it be painful? I don't think so. I think F, I don't know. Maybe it would. I don't know how bird feathers work, so I'm going to put a question mark on F. I'm not sure about that one. Okay, they fasten deeply. Quills fasten deeply, so the removal of a quill stub before it is ready to be naturally shed would be painful. Well, if it's deep, you have to pull it real hard, and it's touching a lot of nerves. So I think that one works. G seems right. Break occasionally. Well, quills break occasionally, so the removal of quill stub. Well, if they break occasionally and there's nerves in the quill, then breaking it would hurt the bird. Now, I don't know if there's nerves in the quill, but it breaking occasionally would not make its removal be painful. It would make its breaking be painful. So H does not make sense. I would say no. Or, maybe you say, I don't know, maybe it is. And then quills are light, very light. So the removal, well, I don't know. Why would being light make it hurt to remove it? So G is the best one. It's deep, so it touches a lot of nerves, and then removing it makes it painful. So the answer to 64 is G. They fasten deeply. All right, let's see. That was relevance. I was trying to go here. 63 to 74. 65. Quills are hollow, so the removal of a quill stub before it is ready to be naturally shed would be very painful. 65 does not have a question. No option to delete or omit. Is what's there, right or wrong? Quills are hollow, so the removal of a quill stub, that's a single thing, before it is ready to be naturally shed, seems fine to me. I think this one has to do with pronouns. 65, pronouns, agreements in case, and then relative pronouns, chapter 14. But it's a single quill stub. It's an it. It is ready to be naturally shed. That makes sense to me. B is plural, they. C is plural, those. The removal of a quill stub before that is ready to be naturally shed would be very painful. You would call it an it, not a that. It's a direct pronoun, so we wouldn't say that. That we might use for general things. The quill stub that is about to be removed could be very painful, something like that. But we use it in this case. So A is the answer for 65. 66. Yes, we're going all the way to 74. Which of the following alternatives to the underlined portion would not be acceptable? It says, bird rehabilitators therefore treat broken raptor feathers through imping, dash, the implanting of a new feather. So remember, dashes or colons follow independent clauses, and what follows them could be an explanation or a list that stands on its own or another independent clause. This happens to be an explanation of what the word imping means. So I would anticipate that a colon would be also correct. If there's a choice for a colon, we wouldn't pick that one. Let's see. Bird rehabilitators therefore treat broken raptor feathers through imping. A period there. would be incorrect. A comma, I think, would be okay. A semicolon would be incorrect. A comma, fanboys, would be incorrect. So those are some ways I might anticipate. Maybe you can't, and we have to look at the choices. Imping, which is the implanting of implant. That works fine. It's just a little explanation with the word which, and it can be set aside by a comma. G has imping, colon. We already said that would also be right, so that's not right. Imping, period. That's the one we anticipated. The implanting of a feather into the quill stub, that's not an independent clause. There's no main verb. So there would have to be a verb. The implanting of a new feather into the quill stub is called imping. That would be an independent clause. We wouldn't want to use that specific one here because we already know it's called imping. But that would be okay. The way it is written now, there's no main verb, so it can't be separated with a period. What's before it is an independent clause, what's after it is not. So the answer is H. And then J, again, the little bit of extra information, explanation of what imping is, not essential, so we can put a comma there just like we could put a dash or a colon. So the correct answer is H for number 66. And now that I saw the different things, it has to be sentences and fragments, chapter 2, punctuation between sentences, chapter 3. Boy, I don't know. It also has to have colons and dashes. And let me look. Colon is chapter 6, and then dashes. Ugh. Colons is chapter 6. I apologize that I have to do this, but if I leave it, I'll never get it. I don't know the chapter. Excuse me for dashes. I'm going to have to look it up because if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. I will just take a moment to get this. Dashes is chapter 7. I should have known that, but I didn't. I can't memorize all the chapters. You can't expect everything from me. I can't do everything at once. Okay, let's see. Colons and dashes. I try to do a lot, but I can't do everything. All right, that's 66. We got it. And what are we doing here? To 74. Okay, let's keep going. 67. The bird rehabilitator begins by determining which feather has been damaged. On each wing, all flighted birds having 10 primary flight feathers, each one shaped slight different. All right, number 1, 2 underlines in the same sentence. 67, is there a question? No. Item to delete or omit? No. Correct as written. On each wing, all flighted birds having 10 primary flight feathers, each one shaped slight different. That doesn't sound right to me. And again, you could go by sound. That would be one way to figure it out, but I'm going by rules, and there's no main verb there. So on each wing, all flighted birds have 10 primary flight feathers without a comma. That's what I'd say for 67. No comma and the word have. And that's D. Okay, the problem with as it's written, ing verbs cannot be main verbs. Let me look here. This probably has to do with sentences and fragments. Chapter 2. Yeah, I guess that's it because we don't have options for different punctuation. So B is also an ing verb, having, and C has a W word, which grabs up main verbs, and now we don't have an independent clause. So D is the answer. All flighted birds have 10 primary feathers. We need a main verb there. 68. Now this is the other one in the same sentence. On each wing, all flighted birds have 10 primary flight feathers, each one shaped slight different. Okay, so the word slight is an adjective. It cannot modify another adjective different. So we have to, or shaped how? Shaped slight? No, it has to be an adverb, slightly different. Each one shaped slightly differently, maybe would be it. Okay, now, let me, 68, I think it has to do with adjectives and adverb, chapter 10. Okay, yeah, I guess slightly differently, because shaped how? Shaped differently. How differently? Slightly differently. The different word has to modify shaped, which is a verb, and the slight word has to modify different, the different word, which is an adverb, which would make slight another adverb. So usually the ly form is the adverb form. So shaped how? Shaped differently. How differently? Slightly differently. So that's H. Slight differently. It's got an adjective form for G. For slight, H is correct. Slightly more different. More different than what? What are we comparing it to? That's why J is wrong. Also, it's 3 words where H is only 2 words. So we say the right thing in fewer words, and J has a little bit of the wrong idea because more different than what? Okay, that's 68 and 60. Did I put what 68 is? Yes. Somehow that got moved over. I knew something looked strange there. Let me save that one. 68 is adjective and adverbs. All right, 69. The writer is considering revising the previous sentence to read like this. If necessary, a number 6 or 8 feather can be cut to the shape of a number 7 feather. If the writer did this, the sentence would lose what? A sense of what? So the preceding sentence, it would say, if necessary, a number 6 or 8 feather can be carefully trimmed with small scissors to the shape. So we're losing carefully trimmed and the fact that the scissors are small. I would say it loses a sense of how much precision there has to be here because they're small scissors and it has to be carefully trimmed. We're losing a sense of care or precision. All right, how limited rehabilitation feather collections are. No, it's not about the feathers. It's about how we're trimming it, how careful we're being, and the fact that the scissors are small and it has to be carefully trimmed. Delicate work. Well, precision work, careful work. Delicate means careful precision. So I think B is right. A is wrong. B seems to match my anticipation. C, difficult. How different each of a bird's flight feathers is. Careful and small scissors does not tell us how different the flight feathers are. Easy it is to replace a number 7 feather. The fact that it's careful and small scissors does not tell us it's easy. In fact, it's kind of opposite. So the answer for 69 is B, and I would believe 69 has to do with, I think I already said it, relevance, add, replace, delete. And for some reason, that one also doesn't have the answer in there, so I have to fix that, which I've now done. Okay, 70, we still have to do 63, so we have a few more to do here. 74, and then what else do we have? 63 to 74 and 75. We should have said 63 to 75. Who came up with 63 to 74? Okay, I just did 69, I think. If necessary, number 6 or 8 feather. Yes, so now we're on 70. Okay, the quill of his replacement feather is trimmed so that when the replacement feather is eventually attached to the quill stub still in the bird's body, the repaired feather will be equal in length to the original whole feather. 70 does not have an option to delete or omit, or it does not have a question, does not have an option to delete or omit. So is it right or wrong? The quill of this replacement feather is trimmed so that when the replacement feather is eventually attached to the quill stub still in the bird's body, the repaired feather will be equal in length to. That seems right to me, so I would pick no change. Let's look at the other options. Would be equally long to. You don't say equally long to. It would be equally long as. So I guess this has to do with diction and register. Let me see if that's what I put here for number 70. Oh, I did! Diction and register. Chapter 16. All right, so we decided F is right, but we're looking at the other choices. Be equally long. It would be equally as long as. So that's what G would be. Equal the length, it would be of the original. The feather will equal in length. You would have to say equal the original in length. It wouldn't be equal in length to the original without the be. So we need the be equal in length to say to the original. We wouldn't say equal in length to the original. We'd say will be equal in length to the original. So that's why F is right and J is wrong. Again, we could fix J. I mean, you can't do it on the test, but we'd have to say something like will equal the length. Let's see if we can get it equal in length. Will equal in length. No. You'd have to say will equal the original in length. So again, that's J we can't I mean, it's certainly wrong as it is, and we can't fix it that way. But just to tell you, that's what the idiom would be. So this is right. Will be equal in length to. That's the correct idiom. That's why 70 is F. 71. Next, the rehabilitator whittles a bamboo chopstick. All right, this is transition words. Well, what happens here? It says on each wing, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so the previous paragraph gives us some steps this guy is taking. The bird rehabilitator begins by determining which feather has been damaged. And then it gives us a bunch of steps. And then this one says the rehabilitator whittles a bamboo chopstick, and then he or she then inserts the chopstick. All right, so what's the relationship between what comes before this thing and maybe even what comes after? Well, this is another item in the list. We've got some things above it that the rehabilitator had to do. So, it could be specifically numbered. If this was the third thing, we might say third, but we would say something like next. All right, let's cross out what was already there. Well, next works. However, doesn't. They're not opposites. Whittling a bamboo chopstick is not contradictory to the feather is attached to the quill stub. The repaired feather will equal in length. That's not opposite of whittling a bamboo chopstick. Indeed, it's not an example of being equal in length. And finally, well, this isn't the last thing because we have something after it. He or she then inserts the carved chopstick. So something follows it. If nothing followed, if it was the last step, finally would be fine. So it is just the next step in the process. We talked about begins by determining which feather has been damaged. And then if necessary, number 6 or 8 can be carefully trimmed, the quill. So the first thing they had to do was examine and determine which feather is damaged. Then it gives details of how the feathers work. Then they talk about the person had to trim the replacement feather so that when it's eventually attached, it will be equal in length to the original. And then the next thing after trimming the feather is whittles a bamboo chopstick to duplicate the curve and slant of the complete feather shaft. So it's just the next item in the list, which is A for 71. And 71 has to do with transition. Okay, 72, we have to do all the way to 75. All right, 72. After sliding the shaft of the replacement feather over the sturdy light bamboo stick, glue, just a touch, is applied. All right, this one should have to do with essential, non-essential information. I don't know. It might also have to do with commas and modification. It depends. But let's look. Is there a question for 72? No. Is there an option to delete? No. Is what's written there right or wrong? I say it's right. Just a touch is non-essential information. We could say, after sliding the shaft of the replacement feather over the sturdy light bamboo stick, glue is applied. That would be fine. After, all the way to stick is an introductory clause, comma, then we need a subject, glue, main verb is applied, complete thought. So just a touch is non-essential information, and we're emphasizing it, so instead of putting commas around it, we put dashes. The only time you only put commas around something that goes in the middle of a sentence is when it's a transition word. Transition words in the middle of sentences always get commas around them, not dashes. I am tall. I, comma, however, comma, cannot reach high places. You would not say I dash, however, dash, cannot reach high places. All right, so this is right as written, so that is F. And let me see what I called it. I didn't see any commas, so let's see. Wait a minute. 72 modifiers. Well, let me add an essential, non-essential, because that's certainly in there. But I guess if you look at the answer choices, you realize this isn't about essential, non-essential. It's really about modifiers, which you don't even have to worry about if you just look at what's there and ask if it's right or wrong. It's right. However, it says light bamboo stick glue, just a touch is applied. G says a touch of glue is applied by the, wait a minute, that's not modifiers. A touch of glue is applied by the rehabilitator. Let's see. After sliding the shaft of the replacement feather over the sturdy, light bamboo stick, a touch of glue. Oh, yeah, that is modifiers. Because after sliding the shaft of the replacement feather over the sturdy, light bamboo stick. Oh, wait a minute. I'm not paying attention here because F is wrong. Here's the reason F is wrong. Yes, it is correct. Let me get rid of this essential, non-essential. Boy, I almost made a goof on this one. Erase everything I said before because it's no good and I cannot take time to edit this video. After sliding the shaft of the replacement feather over the sturdy, light bamboo stick. Who slides the shaft of the replacement feather, or what slides the shaft of the replacement feather over the sturdy, light bamboo stick? The rehabilitator does. Glue doesn't slide the shaft of the replacement feather over the sturdy, light bamboo stick. Whenever you have an introductory phrase, the very next noun has to be what the phrase is about. The thing or person doing whatever that phrase mentions. So the phrase is what the rehabilitator is doing. So the very next word after that comma, after stick, better be the rehabilitator. So F isn't. The glue doesn't slide the shaft of the feather. A touch of glue, G is also the glue. H, the application of a touch of glue isn't what slides the shaft. The rehabilitator applies a touch of glue. The rehabilitator is who slides the shaft of the replacement feather. So the next noun mentioned has to be whoever was sliding the shaft. Has to be what the intro phrase is talking about. That is J. Boy, good thing I thought about that one for a second, and there it is. The answer is indeed J. Good thing I thought about that for a second because I thought this was about essential, non-essential, and I wasn't paying attention to glue being a mixed modifier. The glue isn't what slid the shaft of the replacement feather over the sturdy, light bamboo stick. All right, hopefully I've emphasized that enough now. So the answer is J. The rehabilitator is who is sliding the shaft. So that has to be the next person over the of the replacement feather over the sturdy, light bamboo stick. So whenever there's an introductory phrase, the next noun has to be what the introductory phrase is talking about. Otherwise, it's a mixed modifier. Very good. All right, so J. The raptor now has a rebuilt functional feather. Eventually, it will be shed, allowing a new complete feather to grow in its place. All right, again, multiple underlines in the same sentence. This might have to do with modifiers. Who knows? But let me see. Is there a question? Which of the following alternatives to the underlined portion would not be acceptable? Okay, I guess it's not about transitions, transition words. Remember, there's some questions that ask which of the following would be the right transition for this paragraph. It's a transition question, but it's not the transition question where you cross out and see what the relationship is. Those are single word transitions. But anyway, okay, this isn't that. The raptor now has a rebuilt functional feather, period. Eventually, it will be shed, allowing a new complete feather to grow in its place. All right, so I can anticipate a couple ways we could break this. Just put a comma between feather and eventually. Leave the period there and put which will be shed, because then there's no second independent clause. All right, let's see. Feather, semicolon, eventually it will be shed. So remember, if there's a period and semicolon, nothing else changed, and we're talking about a single semicolon, then you can pick neither, because in this case, both period and semicolon, because they're functionally identical, are both correct. So A is out. And let me write that in here. A is out. Okay, let's look at the next one. B, feather, comma, eventually it. Okay, I think that's just a comma, yes. So B is one we anticipated. You have two independent clauses. You can't just put a comma between them. B is not acceptable. C, feather, comma, which eventually will be. Yeah, okay, that's fine. The second thing is no longer an independent clause because we don't have a subject and we put a W word there. So we could put a comma before it. And feather, that eventually. Well, comma, which eventually and that eventually, they're the same meaning. So C and D are essentially the same. Which gets a comma in front of it, that doesn't. So the answer, they're both correct. The answer is B because it's got a comma between two independent clauses. The independent clauses are, the raptor now has a rebuilt functional feather. Subject, raptor. Verb, has. We know what it has. It's a complete thought. And then the next part, eventually, it will be shed, allowing a new complete feather to grow in its place. It is the subject. Will is the main verb. We know what it will. It will be shed. So I guess the verb is there, shed, and will be shed. Those are modifying the verb. So it is the subject, shed, will be shed is the verb. So we have two independent clauses, and we cannot just put a comma between them. That's B. And hopefully 73 is sentences and fragments, chapter 2. Punctuation between sentences, chapter 3. B has just a comma between two independent clauses. Absolutely no. Okay, 74. Eventually, it will be shed, allowing a new complete feather to grow in it is place. I'm in the habit of whenever I see a IT apostrophe S, I see it is. So there is no option to, there is no question, no option to delete or omit. Is it right or wrong? It's wrong. How would I fix it? Okay, its place, I'd say ITS, but I probably want to check to see if there's only one thing. Well, it says it has a rebuilt functional feather. It, the feather, will be shed, allowing a new complete feather to grow in its, the feather's, place. So I would replace this with grow in its, ITS, and that's G. H and J are wrong verb forms. So I guess 74 has to do with apostrophe, possessive plural, chapter 1, and verb tense, chapter 8. I have a habit of thinking it and not saying it. Verb tense, chapter 8, and the correct answer is G, grow in its, ITS, that's possessive. All right, at this point, the writer is considering adding the following true statement. This imping procedure is just one of the many responsibilities bird rehabilitators have. All right, this one, 75, has to do with relevance. The whole passage is now ended already. Relevance, add, replace, delete is chapter 18. I always want to get the chapter number in there. All right, the whole passage is done. We've talked about how the rehabilitator fixes a feather, a bird feather, and now the imping procedure is just one of the many responsibilities bird rehabilitators have. Well, unless there's another paragraph that talks about those other responsibilities, this would be a fine transition to that. There's no reason to mention this. It just leaves us hanging. Okay, what are those extra responsibilities? So I wouldn't put it in there. A and B are out. A and B are out. It's one of the no's. Which no is it? No, because it goes beyond the scope of the essay, which focuses on how the feathers of certain types of birds are repaired. Well, C sounds pretty good to me. D, no, because it undermines the essay's earlier claim that imping is the most important work. Well, imping procedure is just one of many. If it's just one of many responsibilities, it could still be the most important work. So it doesn't really contradict that. But really, the main problem is the rest of the essay, and there is no rest of the essay passage, doesn't go on to explain what these other responsibilities are. So D is out. The answer is C for 75. All right, that's it. 59F, English, all the questions missed. You now have written explanations plus these video explanations. And unfortunately, it's not all edited down and remove all the blunders and extra stuff in there, but we do the best we can.